Welcome back. Let's turn to our political observers for their take on the 9th Congressional District race. Joining us tonight in our Charlotte studio, Republican consultant Alfredo Rodriguez. In our Washington, D.C. bureau, Andrew Bates, communications director for the progressive group American Bridge. And here in our Raleigh studio, Joe Stewart, a longtime political commentator on North Carolina politics. I want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And let's start with you, Andrew. I mean, every outlook that we see for this says toss-up or possibly even leans Democratic from Sabato's crystal ball. Is this truly one of those districts that Democrats think that they can take in this election?
Yes, it is. Dan McCready has a unique profile as a Marine combat veteran in Iraq, an entrepreneur, and a first-time candidate for office, and that has managed to ignite support from Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike. And that is something that's giving him unique energy. I also think that voters are responding to numerous programs that have been passed by this Congress, such as a tax giveaway to the rich that is increasing our debt by $2 trillion on the backs of the middle class, as well as attempts to take health care from over 100,000 people within the 9th District. And that's something that Mark Harris continues to stand by. So I think that there is a confluence of things that's helping Dan McCready. I know that earlier in this program people were talking about a blue wave. I think that as far as Dan McCready goes, it would be a purple-colored wave because of that broad support he's been able to see.
Alfredo, this district has always been a pretty safe district for Republicans. To have the incumbent lose during the primary and now have Republicans having to be fighting for this seat can't be something that they were expecting going into this race.
Well, I don't think we're going to see a blue wave or a purple wave in this district. I agree with Andrew that Dan McCready is a great candidate on paper. He's a great politician that can deliver great sound bites, but that's where it stops. He's been marred here recently with a tag as being disingenuous, dodging questions, being evasive on his positions on important issues that the voters care about. And that's not me delivering talking points. That's the Charlotte Observer that's called him evasive and has questioned his genuineness in this race. I think Mark Harris is a great candidate. He represents the district and its conservative leanings. He's going to go to Congress and continue to work to grow our economy, protect our border, and deliver jobs for this district. And Dan McCready has a problem. He's taken over $1 million from Nancy Pelosi and her allies. Who is he going to vote for Speaker? Is he going to participate in the impeachment that Democrats want to do of the president? Is he going to participate in the impeachment of Supreme Court nominee Kavanaugh? Where are his answers on those questions?
Okay, Joe, so this district in 2016 was plus 12 for Trump. In 2012 was plus 12 for Romney. Could it actually swing that much and go blue?
One of the interesting dynamics, Loretta, about this district is even though it stretches from Mecklenburg County almost to the Atlantic Ocean, 60% of the voter base in the 9th Congressional District lives in what are considered to be urban parts of the district. That's really come to define North Carolina politics in a way that we have no history of. People that have moved here recently from other parts of the country, concentrating around the major metropolitan area, they don't have a historical sense of North Carolina politics. They're far more influenced by whatever the national atmosphere is in an election. And this race sort of typifies the dynamics that make it far more unpredictable, despite the history of the people of the 9th District electing Republicans.
Andrew, let's talk about the amount of money that's coming into this race. We're certainly seeing a lot of outside resources showing interest in this race on both sides.
Yes, that's true. And something I'd like to point out is that Speaker Ryan's super PAC has actually spent a larger amount of money in this district than the House Democrats' super PAC, which is important context. And the reason that this district is so competitive is because Mark Harris supports an agenda that would be deeply hurtful to middle-class families and to seniors here. And that is something that has made this uniquely competitive. For example, you saw in the first debate last week that Mark Harris reiterated his support for the tax plan that gives 80% of its benefits to the wealthy, and he wants to pay for it. It is increasing our deficit by $2 trillion. He wants to pay for it by cutting into Medicare and Social Security. And that's something that is unacceptable to most families who count on that for their economic stability. And by contrast, Dan McCready has staked out positions such as protecting Medicare and Social Security, investing in education, investing in our small businesses, and that has contributed to why this race is so close.
And Alfredo, I'm going to ask you that same question. We're seeing so much of this money come into this race. Do you think that this is going to influence the outcome?
Well, it certainly is. I mean, there's a great deal of money on both sides. The distinction is that Mark Harris hasn't disavowed or turned his back on Speaker Ryan or condemned the money that's being spent on his behalf. Dan McCready has said, which is quite evasive and quite frankly a lie, that he has not accepted any money from Nancy Pelosi. Well, Nancy Pelosi has put over $1 million into this race trying to elect Dan McCready. And Dan McCready says he doesn't support Nancy Pelosi. Well, after you have $1 million spent on your behalf, that's something to question.
Okay, guys, we're going to take a quick break right now. When we return, we'll have more with our political observers as we get closer to the 9th Congressional District debate. Stay with us. And welcome back. We're now just a few minutes away from our 9th Congressional District race, and we're still here with our political observers who are taking a look at this race. Joe, I'm going to come to you right now. We have two political newcomers. Neither one of these men has ever won an elected office before. How much does that actually play into this race right now when we have a big debate like this coming up tonight?
Absolutely it makes a difference, in large part because the voters don't know who the candidates are. Mark Harris, maybe because of previous runs, has a little bit more name recognition. McCready has had a lot of money spent out of his campaign as well as from some of these outside groups, so voters are probably pretty familiar with the two candidates now. But this close to the election, Loretta, it's really about momentum. Who can maintain a sense of buoyancy going into Election Day, keep their voters enthusiastic. I think McCready's got a lot to prove in this debate tonight, as you've heard some of the criticism that he's maybe not been willing to make a specific statement of his stand on certain key issues. Some expectation that Mark Harris can bring the evangelical vote of the Republican Party out because he's a minister. So I think they both have high stakes tonight in this debate. It'd be very interesting to see if they come out swinging.
Okay, Andrew, what do we need to hear from Dan McCready tonight?
We need to keep hearing his story about who he is and why he's running, that he is a Marine combat veteran who served his country, served with people without regard to what their political views were, color of their skin. And we need him to keep pressing home that Mark Harris has taken positions that are very much at odds with the values of North Carolina. Like I mentioned, he still supports an Affordable Care Act repeal plan that would cost over 100,000 people in the 9th District their health care. It would also gut the coverage protections for pre-existing conditions that 300,000 people in the 9th District are counting on. And what's more, Mark Harris has been profoundly disrespectful to women. He has questioned whether women should even have careers at all, and that has been condemned by over 40 faith leaders across North Carolina. So he's going to have a lot to answer for in this debate.
Okay, Alfredo, same question to you. What do you want to hear from Mark Harris tonight?
Well, I think Mark Harris just needs to be Mark Harris. He just needs to be genuine. He needs to be honest. He needs to be the trustworthy conservative that he is. I'm more interested in hearing what Dan McCready has to say to the tough questions which he's continued to dodge and be evasive. Is he going to support Nancy Pelosi for Speaker? Is he going to participate in impeachment hearings on Donald Trump? Is he going to participate in impeachment hearings for Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh? We deserve to have those answers, and he needs to stop being evasive.
Just quickly, Joe, is this about not making mistakes tonight, or is this about being aggressive against the other candidate?
Having worked in campaigns before, preparing a candidate for a debate, many times it's about, as much as anything, getting them to check their emotions, not to be drawn into some ploy of the opponents to make them say something or characterize themselves or their position foolishly. I think both of these candidates are probably very nervous right now going into this debate. I think they want to score big points, and the question is, are they able to do that either affirmatively or in attacking their opponent? My suspicion is that sparks are going to fly tonight.
Okay, well, it's certainly going to be interesting to see what happens. Andrew Bates, Alfredo Rodriguez, Joe Stewart, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight as we look forward to this debate. If you are in our Raleigh or Charlotte markets, stay with us. Our 9th Congressional District debate will start in just a few moments. And if it's on Jones Street or Main Street, you'll always find it right here on Capitol Tonight. We hope that you have a great evening.